So the slides are visible,
Yes, sir.
right? So yesterday, any questions or doubt? Okay, nothing is there, right? So yesterday, what we have discussed about the anti-neoplastic agent, right? So we have discussed about the neoplasm, right? So neoplasm is the new growth of any tissues, right? New growth, right? So basically, we have talked that the basically the neoplasm is of two types, right? One is the benign, which remain confined to a particular place, and the second one is the malignant form of that thing. And the malignant form of the neoplasm are very fatal, right? They cause a large amount or number of mortality, and this malignant neoplasm is actually termed as cancer, right? So this thing we have discussed. Then we have discussed about the traditional chemotherapies, because only the traditional chemotherapies are in your syllabus right now, right? So in the traditional chemotherapies, what we have discussed basically about the alkylating agents, right? So now how the alkylating agent existed, right? They were existed because of the World War One, where the sulfur mustards were used as the warfare agent, right? So this was the thing. This was the thing. Let me open the pointer. Right. This sulfur mustard were used during the World War One, right? Because they were having the ability to kill the cell. And from these sulfur mustard, they developed the nitrogen mustard. So basically, this is the general formula for the nitrogen mustard. And in your syllabus, four drugs are there: cyclophosphamide, chlorambucil, melphalan, and the mechlorothamine, right? So we'll be discussing about this thing. So this is the general formula of the nitrogen mustard. So what we have in the nitrogen mustard, we have ethyl, right? So it is a basically a diethyl and dichloro type of molecule, right? So we can say it's a bis 2 chloroethyl amide N, because this is the sulfur, this will be a sulfide, and here it will be the amide or the amine type of molecule, right? So this is the thing, right? So now, although see, yesterday what we have discussed an important point, right? That whether we have these anti-cancer agents, they are not able, the traditional anti-cancer agents, they are not able to differentiate between a normal cell and the cancer cell, right? So what was happening, they were causing a lot of toxicities, right? Because they were not able to differentiate between the cancer cell and the normal cell. And since these nitrogen mustard are the type of traditional therapies, so majority of them are not used these days, right? So although the thousand of nitrogen mustard have been synthesized and tested, only the five are commonly used in cancer chemotherapy today. And among these five, only the cyclophosphamide is used in the present time, right? So this is the thing. This is the case of the nitrogen mustard. So I'll be just going with some structure. Right. So in your syllabus, what we have a chloromethane, right? So see, this is the general formula where the R is replaced by the methyl group, right? Then what they have done some modification, they have just replaced this with the benzene ring with a fatty acid, right? With the acid. Then they have replaced again with the benzene ring with an amine, right? So this is the thing. So, but if you look at the characteristic chemical constant of this basically all the nitrogen mustard, what is the common thing? It's the bis chloroethyl group. So this is the bis chloroethyl group. So two chloro are there and the two ethyl moieties are there, right? So basically it's the bis chloroethyl group. So this is common in all the molecules, right? So basically this bis chloroethyl part is actually responsible for its pharmacodynamics activity, right? Pharmacodynamic mean how it is interacting with your biological macromolecules, right? The rest of the molecule is responsible for the pharmacokinetics activity, right? How this will only respond to the absorption, distribution, metabolism, and the excretion, right? In all these molecules, right? Only this part is the vital part, this bis chloroethyl group, right? So we'll be discussing this thing, and this is the general formula. This is the general formula this of for these compound. So basically we can replace the R with either the methyl or either this fatty acid or either with this amine or either with this molecule, the phosphate molecule, right? So this is the general formula. right? So what is happening yesterday, what we have talked about, we have talked that all the alkylating agents, right? We have talked about the alkylating agents. So alkylating agents were doing what? They were actually interacting, or actually they were forming a chemical bonds with the electron rich centers of the biomolecules. The important one was the DNA, and in the DNA, the important nitrogenous base was the guanine, and in the guanine, the important position where the interaction was happening was the N7th position, right? This we have discussed yesterday. So what we have discussed, that basically these type of alkylating agent will interact with the electron rich center, right? So what type of molecule will be reacting with the electron at the center? They will be the electrophiles, right? So what will happen? This is the general formula. So basically the nitrogen mustard from the cyclic aminium ion. So basically what they will do, they will form a azridinium ion ring, right? So basically this molecule will be get converted to the azridinium ion, right, by the intramolecular displacement of the chloride by the amine nitrogen. So what is happening? See, this chlorine is more electronegative, right? So what it will do? It will pull the electrons from this nitrogen, right? So what will happen if it is pulling the electron from the nitrogen? This chlorine will leave, right? When the chlorine will leave, what will happen? This will form the azridine ion, right? This will cyclized over this side. So this is actually the azridinium ion. The azridinium ion, what it will do? It will then react with the guanine, the DNA part, the guanine, the seventh position of the guanine will attack at this electropositive center, or this anion generated, right? So it will be attacking over this side. And what it will do, it will form a bond with it, the covalent bond. So see, this is the guanine, and it has formed a bond with this azridinium ion, right? So now the second part which is free, this the same fate will again occur. This chlorine will get away from this thing, and again it will form a azridinium ion, and that azridinium ion will react with the second part of the guanine, the second guanine, right? So basically what it will do, it will form an interstrand crosslink, right? When it is forming an interstrand crosslink, what will happen? The DNA will not be getting unwrapped, right? And once the DNA will not be getting unwrapped, it will not go into the process of the transcription and the translation, leading to the cell death, right? So this is the common mechanism. So basically what is happening, this positive species is generating, the carbocation is generating over here, or the what we can call it electrophile. So basically this electrophile is called the azridinium ion, and this azridinium ion is attacked by the guanine, right? The guanine, this is the guanine, and the seventh position of the guanine is what? It's having the electron. This is an electron rich center, right? So this electron rich center will attack at this azridinium ion, leading to the formation of the adduct called the guanine DNA adduct, right? And the second part will again then undergo the same type of reaction, and it will form an interstrand crosslink between the DNA, right? So two guanine molecules will be occupied by the single, what we call this nitrogen mustard, or the alkylating agent, because it has two centers to attack, right? So it can form the bond with two guanine molecules, and it will form a interstrand crosslink, right? So this is the thing. And when it is forming this thing, the interstrand crosslink, what will happen? Basically your DNA will not get unwrapped, or it will not go into any biological process, for example the replication and the translation, and hence the cell will eventually die, right? So this is the basic mechanism how these alkylating agent or the nitrogen mustard work, right? So this is the basic one, right? So now we'll be moving to the cyclophosphamide. So I told you that the cyclophosphamide is the only the alkylating agent which is currently used, right? So basically this is an prodrug. So this question might come in the GPAT exam. So this is a prodrug, right? This is the structure of the cyclophosphamide. Again, we have the two groups, the same two type of group, which will be forming the azridinium ion, and then the guanidine or the guanine seventh position will be attacking at that azridinium ion to form the interstrand adducts, right? So basically what is happening now, the cyclophosphamide is inactive as such, right? So this is the first thing. So what is happening? The cyclophosphamide get first converted to the first get metabolized by the cytochrome P450 enzymes, and it get converted to the principal metabolite, that is the phosphoramide mustard and the acrolein. So this is one of the major questions that occurs in the GPAT exam, right? They may ask you what are the metabolites of active metabolites of this cyclophosphamide drug, right? So the correct answer will be the phosphoramide mustard and the acrolein. So this is the thing. This is the cyclophosphamide, right? So when I am talking about the cytochrome P450 enzymes or the metabolizing enzymes are present in the liver. So it is the hepatic cytochromes, right? So the hepatic cytochromes is converting this cyclophosphamide to the 4-hydroxy cyclophosphamide. So basically this phosphamide CH2, here it is coming the OH. So basically this cytochrome P450, basically it is doing what? It is doing the hydroxylation, right? So if it is doing the hydroxylation, what is happening? It is converting this thing into the 4-hydroxy cyclophosphamide, right? And there is a reversible reaction which converts this 4-hydroxy cyclophosphamide to the aldophosphamide. Aldophosphamide, by inserting the aldehyde group, this CHOH is getting converted to the CHO, right? Now this 4-hydroxyphosphamide separately go the enzymatic reaction, and this aldophosphamide also undergoes the reaction and again go the metabolism to form some inactive metabolites, right? It is going to the reaction to form some inactive metabolites, but this aldophosphamide is getting non-enzymatic catalyst. Basically, it is undergoing the non-enzymatic reaction to form the phosphoramide mustard and the acrolein. So basically, these are the toxic metabolites which are actually showing its cancer activity, right? Sorry, this toxic activity towards the cell. So basically, once it is hydrolyzed, so this molecule, this part, bis chloroethyl group is showing the intra-strand activity. So these are the two toxic metabolites which are actually forming, right? So these are the principal metabolites of this molecule, and these two metabolites are actually toxic and they are responsible for causing the secondary cancer or the secondary malignancies, right? So this is the thing. So all these alkylating agent, or for example, if I talk about the nitrogen mustard, all these nitrogen mustard will do what? They will release this dichloroethyl group, right? And this dichloroethyl group will form the azridinium ion, and that azridinium ion will be attacked by the guanine. In the majority of case, it will be the guanine, which will be the 7th position of the nitrogen will be attacked to that azridinium ion, and it will form a DNA adduct, right? So this is the common mechanism of all these nitrogen mustards, right? So this is the thing, and this is the thing that you should remember for your GPAT exam. So majority in many years this question has come in the exam. What are the major principal metabolites of the cyclophosphamide, right? So this is the thing. Now we'll move to the another alkylating agent, that is the alkyl sulfonate, right? So now this there is one drug in your syllabus which is called the busulfan, right? So again, when I talking about the sulfan, so basically there will be a sulfate group, and when I'm talking about the busulfan, so there will be a butyl group, right? So basically it's a bifunctional alkylating agent. So I'll tell you the structure. So see, this is the thing, right? This is the structure. So basically it have, see, 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? Methane, ethane, propane, butane. So this is bu, and sulfan. This is the sulfan group, right? Sulfoxides, right? So this is the sulfoxide group. Now see, this is a bifunctional alkylating agent. So see, basically it contains 2 labile methane sulfonate or the mesylate group. So basically this is the methane sulfonate. See, this is the methyl, and this is the methane sulfonate group, this one, and this one. So basically it contains 2 methane sulfonate groups attached to the opposite ends of a 4-carbon alkyl chain. So this 4 alkyl carbon chain is basically the butane, and hence it gets named the busulfan or the busulfan, right? So this is the thing. Now what will happen when it will be when it will actually goes toward the cancer cell? So firstly, there will be a hydrolysis of this busulfan. And when the hydrolysis will occur, see, this is the busulfan, and this hydrolysis is occurring. And if the hydrolysis is occurring, this group is going out, right? So when there will be the removal of this group, there will be the formation of this electrophile, right? There will be the formation of the electrophile, and this methylate group will leave. This is the good leaving group, right? This will be leaving under the hydrolysis condition. So basically this molecule will be forming this cation, right? So what it will do, it will react with the 7th position of the guanine, right? So this will be the monoalkylation, right? The first part is doing the monoalkylation over this side, right? And then this second part, right? This second part has also tendency to leave, right, in the form of the methylate ion, right? So what it will do, first thing, it will be attacking the N7 position of the DNA, and secondly, it is also attacking the amino acid residues. This thing, this group is also attacking this total group. This total group is also attacking the protein NS2s, right? You all know that the protein have two important function group, carboxylic acid and the amine. So basically this group can also attack to the protein NS2s, right? So now that's why it is called the bifunctional alkylating agent. So why it is called the bifunctional alkylating agent? The first part, this cation can form the bond with the guanine, right, DNA, and at the same time this molecule can also form a bond with the ns2s of the protein, right? So then there are the chances of the bis alkylation also. So earlier in earlier example what we were seeing, basically two guanine molecules were interacting together. Basically there was for example, if I talk about nitrogen mustard, what was happening? Hydronium ion was forming, and the guanine 7th position was reacting toward the particular electrophile, right, to form a single adduct. And then the second chlorine was leaving, and it was again forming a hydronium ion to form a inter-strand cross-link, right? So now basically this, see, this was the inter-strand cross-link between the guanine and the guanine. 7th position, right? So now what this molecule can do, this alkyl sulfonate can also form a cross link with the same type of what? Nitrogenous bases, right? So this is called the intra-strand cross link. So basically the alkyl sulfonate have the three peculiar characteristics. It can form a adduct with the N7 position of the guanine, as well as it can form a adduct with the N3 position of the adenine, right? And the third thing what it can do, it can react with the NS2s, the free NS2s of the proteins to form again a adduct, right? So if it is forming the adduct, what will be the fate of that cell? That cell will eventually die, right? So this is the thing. For example, see, in the majority of cases, what happens? For example, if there is a drug and that drug is interacting with the DNA, right? That drug is interacting with the DNA. And now if you recall the cancer cells, right? So what is the peculiar feature of the cancer cells? Cancer cells are metabolically more active, right? And when I'm saying they are metabolically more active, so there could be the chances that their replication and the transcription occurs, right? It occurs rapidly. So there might be chances. See, basically these alkylating agent will be attacking at the DNA only, right? And when there is a formation of the protein, these molecule will become inactive, right? Because no free DNA is available for their interaction. So what will happen when there is a drug like the busulfan? It can also interact with the proteins, the formation of the last step, that is the translation step, right? So if it is interacting with the last uh, formed protein also, so what will happen? They can cumulatively attack two sites. One is the replication and the transcription, and the second one is the translation process, right? So that's why these molecules become important, right? So basically the mechanism is again the SN2 reaction, right? So this is the thing. Now we have the third category, ethyl enamines. The example is the thiotepa, right? It has very simple structure. This type of molecules are called the enamines, right? So now see, what is the peculiar feature of this molecule? This molecule have the 3 aziridine ring already, right? And we know that the aziridine rings are reactive, right? So this molecule has exploited what? This molecule has exploited the nitrogen mustard key active metabolite, right? So what the drug design have, what the medicinal chemists have done, they have incorporated the aziridine molecule inside this chemical entity, right? So what will happen? This is the thing, right? So basically, this is what we have: three aziridine ring, right? So it is N, right? Triethyl triethylene, right? What? Thio and the phosphamide. Why it is called amide? Because it is here nitrogen, right? And it is the phosphamide. It is a phosphate amide, right? So basically, this is also called the thiotepa. Thio is this thing, right? And your thiophosphoramide is the tepa group, right? So this is the thing, right? So now again it will be having a very simple mechanism of action, right? So now what will happen? There could be two possible cases with this molecule. In the first place, this molecule, see it, this molecule already have the aziridinium ion type of molecule, right? This is the aziridinium ring, right? So what will happen? The N7 position of DNA could attack at one of the aziridinium ion and it can form a adduct, right? This is the common thing, right? So what will happen? The second guanine molecule will again also attack at the second what we call this aziridinium ion, and again it will form a intra-strand crosslink, right? So this will be forming an intra-strand crosslink, right? So this is the first thing. The second thing, what can happen? This molecule can undergo hydrolysis, right? If this molecule is undergoing the hydrolysis, it is releasing the aziridine, right? This is releasing the aziridine, and this aziridine can be attacked by the DNA. That's the 7th position of the guanine again to form the monoadduct, right? So it can show two type of mechanism, right? One, see, because these rings are highly reactive, aziridinium rings are these, right? So these are highly reactive. So what will the first mechanism? The DNA or the 7th position of guanine could directly attack to these aziridinium rings, forming a adduct and forming a biadduct, also called the intra-strand crosslink. And the second thing, this molecule can undergo the hydrolysis, right? Hydrolysis to release what? To release the aziridine. And this aziridine could be attacked by the nucleophilic centers in the DNA. Important one is the N7th position of this guanine, right? So to form the monoadduct, right? So this is the thing. So any doubts here in the alkylating agents? These are very simple. These are very simple structure having very simple type of mechanism. So if there is any doubt, please ask. Okay, there is no doubt, I think. Right. So now we'll move to the second category, that is the anti-metabolite. So have anybody have heard what are the anti-metabolites? What are the metabolites actually? Anyone? Anyone? What are the metabolites? For example, when you look at the cell, right? What we are doing in the cancer, we are actually targeting the cell, right? So in the cell, what is the most important thing is the DNA, right? DNA or the nucleic acid, we can say. So what are the key ingredients from which the nucleic acid are made up of? Anyone? So basically they are made up of nitrogenous bases, right? The phosphates and the sugars, right? So basically how now these are synthesized, how these nitrogenous bases are made, how these sugar molecules are made, or how these phosphate group are made, or how the some amino acids are made. So basically when we are actually inhibiting the synthesis of these raw material by some of the molecules which exactly look alike to them, right? Which look exactly alike. right? So basically these false molecule or the pseudo molecules or the anti-metabolite which we call, they get incorporated to that biosynthesis protocol, right? And once they are incorporated to that biosynthetic protocol, the exact macromolecules are not formed, right? So this is the thing. So I'll be just going with the definition, right? So this is the thing. For example, we call the anti-metabolites. So basically the anti-metabolites are the class of anti-cancer drug defined as structurally similar to natural purine or pyrimidine basis nucleoside or the nucleotide. Means these will be the drugs which will having the similar structure, right? Like what? Like toward like the natural purines, pyrimidines, nucleosides or the nucleotides. And now when they have a similar type of structure, so what they will do, and by the virtue of the similarity, they act as analogs of the normal metabolites. So they will be replaced by the basically the natural purine or the pyrimidine basis will be replaced by these metabolites which we are synthesizing, these drugs, right, which are called the anti-metabolites. And what will happen then? The reaction will get disrupted, so the biomacromolecules will not be formed. So basically your DNA will not be formed, and once the DNA will not be formed, what will happen? The cell will not exist, right? So in that way they will be acting as an anti-cancer agent, right? They will be killing the cell like that. So we'll be discussing this thing. So they have a tendency to unite with the active site as if they are the actual substrate, right? So if they are having the similar type of structure, right, but they are the synthetic compound, right, and they are having the what we call similar type of structure toward the like the natural substrate. What they will do, they will bind instead of the natural substrate, right? So I'll be just giving you some examples. So they will be interfering with the normal metabolic process within the cell and thus preventing the synthesis of DNA, RNA and the cell division, right? So this is the thing. So now what is there? Basically the anti-metabolite. When we talk about the anti-metabolites basically belong to the four categories, and three categories are present in your syllabus. The fourth category is the analogs of the amino acids, right? That is the fourth category. And in the syllabus we have the three categories: antifolic acid compound. See, basically the folic acid is used for the synthesis of the nitrogenous bases. So basically this methotrexate can block the synthesis of this folic acid, right? Which then can be utilized for the synthesis of the DNA and the RNA, right? The another thing, here are the analogs of the purine. So these molecules like the thioguanine, mercaptopurine, azathioprine will get incorporated in the place of the natural purine, and thus they will inhibit the natural biosynthetic route, right? The third is the analogs of the pyrimidines, right? We basically have the two important nitrogenous bases, purines and the pyrimidines, right? So this example, for example, fluorouracil, fluorouridine, cytarabine, right? They will be replaced by the, sorry, they will be replacing the pyrimidine analog, the natural pyrimidine analog, and will get incorporated with them, right? So basically what they will do, they will halt the biosynthetic protocol, right? So this is the thing. So we'll be discussing this thing to detail in tomorrow class, right? So if anyone is having any doubts with this thing, they may ask. So any doubts or queries? So I feel there is no doubt. So I'm just canceling this class. If there are some doubts, we'll be doing a doubt session tomorrow, right? So the first doubt is the mechanism of the proton pump inhibitor. So I'll be discussing that thing. And if you have some doubts, you may just ping me, huh? So we can resolve them, right? So thank you for joining, right? Have a good day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.